Our second speaker in this panel, Mr. Ajmal Masroor, who is an author and broadcaster. He writes and discusses various topics ranging from theology to social action, marriage to integration, and politics to reform. He's well known for articulating the authentic, moderate voice of Islam as a socio-political and religious commentator. The media regularly invites Mr. Masroor to take part in TV and radio discussions and debates. He often also travels around the world, delegating lectures at conferences and training, especially for young people. Mr. Masroor, he will participate with us under the same title of tolerance in a topic titled Harmony Between Islam and Homeland and Communities Security. Mr. Masroor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a great honor to be here. Though I must confess, my heart is somewhere else right now. For those of you who know, you would know why I say this. I don't know whether you have heard, but I am standing in the upcoming election as a parliamentary candidate from Bethnal Green and Bow. And it's been a grueling campaign for the last 2 weeks, 14, 15 hours of walking, meeting people, knocking on doors and trying to persuade people to vote for me. It's hard work. And I'm here because I've given my words to my fantastic friend, brother, elder brother, mentor and a teacher, Dr. Makhdoom, that I will speak and I will help with this conference as much as I can. Firstly, I'm sorry I didn't help you as much as I could, because I've become very busy, but I'm sure you would understand why what I'm doing is also important. Nevertheless, I've taken a bit of a break from my campaign trail, left my colleagues to continue, but to be here and to talk about my understanding of this topic. The topic I'm going to address, slightly tweaked from the original topic, it's harmony between Islam and Britain. Exactly the same title. Instead of I'm calling it homeland, I'm calling it Britain, my home. Home of my parents and home of my children. You see, ladies and gentlemen, before I begin, context is very important. I don't have any other home. This is my only home. I don't belong anywhere else. This is where I belong. My children don't belong anywhere else. This is where they belong. Of course, we are global citizens of the world, no doubt about it. But I am legally and by my rights and virtue of duties and responsibilities, I am through and through British. But there is an element of other cultures that run through my vein. My parents come from Bangladesh. My wife is Hungarian. And many say our children are confused. They're not confused at all. They're very, very clear about their identity. They're very proud Muslims. They're very proud British Muslims. In fact, if you ask my son and my daughter, who are you and where are you from, depends on who they're speaking to. If they're speaking to my side of the family, they would say they're Banglish, Bengali and English together. If they're speaking to their mother side of their family, they will say they're Hunglish, Hungarian and English together. If they're speaking to their schoolmates in the playground, they always say very proudly and clearly, we are English and we are Muslims. I see no disharmony between Islam and my home Britain, none whatsoever. It wasn't long ago that I made a headline by making a controversial statement, but that's nothing new for me. I said Islam is, in fact, Britain is more Islamic than most Muslim countries in the world. And I said this knowing exactly what I was saying. Ladies and gentlemen, in this country, we enjoy freedom, tolerance, our rights, like no other country in the world. And I'm very happy and proud of this amazing tradition. That's the reason why I say Britain is more Islamic than most Muslim countries in the world. And the word is most Muslim countries in the world, not all, most. There is a reason for it. My parents come from Bangladesh. I don't know whether you know, but I am banned from going back to Bangladesh because I have been critical of Bangladeshi government's human rights records. So the government has banned me. Has Britain ever banned me? No. Can I say anything I want in Britain? Yes, within my rights and within the law of the land. As long as I'm not preaching hatred and racism, I'm free to say what I want. I can practice my faith freely. I can build as many mosques I want. I can preach in any places I want. I can stand for any election I want. And I am standing for one that's coming up in 23 days from today. My parents, my children enjoy greatest freedom that they can find compared to any other parts of the world. In Muslim majority countries, ladies and gentlemen, there are lots of Muslims, but very little Islam in my view. In Britain today, there are a smaller number of Muslims, but a lot of Islam in everything that we see. Which is the reason why I say there is no conflict between Islam and Britain as we see. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Islam for me is based on very simple principles. Faith, absolute faith in the creator of the universe, the fashioner, the designer, one and the only Lord of the universe, Allah. And there is no ambiguity in my faith, none whatsoever. Even if I go to the British Parliament, I'll still be completely loyal to my belief. And that is, there is only one God I worship, none whatsoever. Other than one God, nothing worthy of worship except Him. That's what makes me Muslim. But I can believe this freely and openly in this country without anyone telling me to change my faith. Nobody has ever asked me to do that. I appear on television, I do radio programs, I write, I do all sorts of things. Everyone knows that I am profoundly faithful to my faith. I'm profoundly and devoted to one God and His worship. And I even say, if I deny God, I deny myself. How could I exist without God? How could I exist without acceptance and the harmony between me and my God? For me, ladies and gentlemen, Islam is based on my personal freedom. I am free to accept Islam and I am free to reject Islam. That's what God says in the Quran. That's what God says in the Quran. If I can accept Islam, I can leave Islam and Islam I want. This freedom is ingrained in my faith. And that's why I don't see any reason why there should be any disharmony between Islam and Britain. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, the most profound and the most amazing feature of Islam is its universal declaration of fairness and justice. Every human being deserves to be treated with fairness and justice, without ambiguity, without condition, without discrimination. Everyone must have access to fairness and justice at all times. This I don't find anywhere else, except in the Quran. However, in reality, Muslims have forgotten some of this in their own countries. But we see this in Britain today, every day. You see, ladies and gentlemen, God says in the Quran, be just even if you have to go against your own self, your families and your friends. For justice is the closest you can ever be to attaining godliness. That's the reason why I say there is harmony in Islam in Britain today and will continue for as long as Muslims remain a good example. This leads me on to my last and the final point. It is true that Muslims have become bad examples of Islam today. Let me share with you a story from yesterday. I was campaigning, I was knocking on doors, and during the afternoon prayer, Dhuhr prayer, I went to my local mosque to campaign after my prayer. So I prayed and I met people and I was talking. One young man came out of the mosque and he said to me, yes. I greeted him, I shook his hand, gave him my leaflet. He said, you're asking me to vote for you. I said, yes. He goes, vote for you? Vote for a man-made system? Don't you know that's kufr? That's what he said. Then I said to him, I looked at him, I said nothing. He goes, I've got a little boy here. He's only 4 years old. He said, son, what do you think about man-made system? Isn't it kufr? The boy was terrified. He just nodded in agreement with his dad. Then he looked at me and he said to me, and you're inviting me to do kufr, and therefore you're a kafir. He looked at his son and he said to me and him, do you not think the person who invites people to kufr is a kafir? The boy nodded in agreement but terrified, only a 4-year-old boy. I stood there, ladies and gentlemen, feeling even more horrified than I've ever done before. I wanted to engage and debate with him. Under normal circumstances, I would have ripped him apart for his ridiculous argument. But I'm in front of a mosque. There I'm campaigning because the mosque has given me permission, and I didn't want to overstep that. So I said to him, look, I'm going to follow the advice of the Quran. I'm going to say peace to you, salam, and I'm going to end this conversation. Thank you very much. He stood there. He said to me, I know which verse you're talking about. The verse tells you to say salam to people who are ignorant. Are you calling me ignorant? I looked at him and I said nothing. I said to him, I wish not to engage with you. I've already said salam to you, please leave me to my work. And he walked away with his son, holding his son's hand. He said, my son, take a good look at this man. He is a person calling everyone to kufr, and he is a kafir, and he will not benefit you, and he will not benefit anyone. And he walked away with his hand and his son's hand held together. I stood there, ladies and gentlemen, thinking, that is not an example of a Muslim. That is not an example of a good Muslim at all. Any Muslim, for that matter, can't do that, should not do that, ever. And he did. Not only was he content in doing what he did, but he was spreading his vile message, intoxicating, in fact, infecting, toxic message was given to his son. For that, I should have stood up and challenged him, but it was not the right time, not the right place. Muslims have become bad examples today, and that's the reason why we're even discussing this topic in this place right now. We've become bad examples. I believe we need to exorcise our internal demons quicker than we've done ever before. We need to call a spade, and we need to start returning to the teachings of Islam, which is about establishing peace inside, contentment inside, and peace around our society with our neighbors and our fellow humanity. For as long as we fail in doing that, we'll need to discuss this over and over and over and over again. My words to end. This is my home, ladies and gentlemen. If I succeed in being the parliamentarian that I wish to be, I'll still be speaking in the same tone and same language in the same way that I've done for the last 40 years. I want you all to rise in doing the same. Islam is not alien in this country. Islam is part and parcel of this country's narrative and its history. The destiny of this country and the destiny of Muslims are intertwined. And together we shall work to make our country, our continent, and our world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masroor. Our next